Hey everybody, how's it going? This video was kind of by popular demand. I had quite a few people email me and say, Tin Man, how does a ported 372 compare to a new 572? And which would you recommend? And I thought, that's a pretty darn interesting question. So, the pretense of this is I ran both of these saws the other day. You guys saw a lot of the footage of me running this Iron Horse 372. It's fun to run somebody else's ported saw. I don't even know if I'm going to take this thing apart. It's such a nice saw. Harvey said I could do whatever I want to it, but it's just nice to run a saw from a good friend and just enjoy it. And that way I'm not biased, friends. I can't say, oh, I built the strongest saws. You guys have seen it on the internet, I'm sure. Sometimes I build awesome saws and sometimes they're not that good. That's just the way it works. Repetition and keeping an open mind, I think, is what makes a fella build good saws. But anyhow, so I ran this saw, but I also brought my shiny new 572. And I ran both of them on the same day and spent some time with them. And today's video is going to be my straight goods on which saw I would pick. First off, friends, I want to say these saws couldn't be any more different to run. They are completely opposites. They're not even in the same ballpark. And just for the ergonomics and the chassis and just how they do their thing. But without further ado, here's some video of both saws running. Most of the clips in this video are going to be the 572. I fired this thing up and was cutting dry, hard blue spruce. Well, as hard as blue spruce can get. And just spent a day with it and enjoyed it. I also had this nasty, snarly 372 Iron Horse build with me and enjoyed both saws. Check out some cutting and I'll jump back in. I think we'll do limbing first. Limbing is a super important part of what makes a good work saw for me. I do a lot of limbing. I cut a lot of softwood here. I like softwood for firewood. That spruce burns fairly decent. It burns hot. It throws good heat. It doesn't burn for a long time, but a lot of times, friends, I'm only in here for 4 or 5 hours in an afternoon, and it's the perfect firewood for me. But the problem is with spruce, it's super bony, and you spend a ton of time limbing. 3/4 of my cutting is limbing, so limbing is super important to me. Let's look at how both saws limb. Hey everyone, how's it going? Just doing some firewood cutting here. And I thought to myself, I brought that orangutan Iron Horse 372 build that he sent me. Now, let's enjoy a stock saw, my 572 XP that I just put the full wrap on. 24-inch full house. I think I'm going to put a 32 on this, or at least a 28. 24 is a little short for me, but I said I'd run this thing the way they sent it for a while. Hand filed. Rakers are pretty much at stock height. This is the first filing on this chain. Anyhow, let's fire this thing up. It's a little bit cold out. Let's see how this auto-tune works today. And let's just continue breaking this thing in and enjoying it. Ah! Okay, so straight off the bat, as a limbing saw, this thing's really good. It's really snappy. Good chain speed. It oils well. Super happy with this 572. It's just a good saw. Nothing wrong with it. This thing's bone stock. I figured I would break it in before I start chopping it up. And believe me, friends, I'm probably going to chop this up. More about that at the end of the video. It's just a really, really nice saw. It is fast. But friends, comparing this to that, this 372 Iron Horse build, these are both 71cc saws, friends. These are a direct comparison. Bore and stroke are different. This has a longer stroke and a smaller bore. This one's 50 by 36. I think these are 48 by 38, I want to say. These are super long stroke saws. I find it interesting that Husqvarna went that way with these builds. Kind of an odd bore and stroke combo. Me personally, all my favorite saws that I've ever run have had a 36 mil stroke and a 50 or 52 millimeter bore. That's the sweet spot. Whether it be one of these, the 044, legendary saws have been this bore and stroke combo. This thing's fast, but this thing's faster. If you ever have the chance to run an Iron Horse saw, friends, the minute you touch that trigger, they're a different kind of saw. They rev up right now from 0 to full RPM with, a flick of the trigger. Not to say that this is slow. This thing is very fast off the throttle, but I think this is faster. More chain speed from this than this. Of course, it is ported, but this saw's no slouch, friends. Out of the box for power, it's definitely got it. But for limbing, this thing's definitely a juggernaut. Now, next, bucking. This saw, I had a 3/8 full house hand file. This is I'm going to say, what is this? That is a C83 Husqvarna chain, 28 inch. This is a C83 Husqvarna chain, but this is a 24 inch. So for bucking, this saw should have the advantage because it's only running a 24. This one's running a 28. So check out both saws bucking. I would say, to be perfectly honest, this was a better falling chain that day, not as quite of an aggressive raker. This saw's pulling a little bit hungrier chain. But at the end of the day, I don't think this saw would pull this chain very well, and I will say that. I filed this according to how I know this saw cuts, but let's check out some bucking of both of these saws, and let's talk about that after you see it. The 572 is no slouch. Decent power, good chain speed, very good power. It's not, I don't know, friends. This 576 XPG, and I think I might take both of these out one day and cut with both of them back to back. I do like this saw more than that. I think the 576, it might have a little more torque on its side. It's hard to say. This saw, friends, you got to have the right chain. You can't have a hungry raker. You got to be sharp with these, or they're just, these saws need a sharp chain. These are RPM saws. This saw, I'm not finding it to be super torquey. This saw does have about 4 tanks on it, maybe 5 now. That little bit of a fueling stumble I had this winter is completely gone on this saw. I let it idle one day. I didn't do the factory reset where you stick the tip into a log and rip lengthways for a period of time at full throttle. I didn't do that. I just let this thing idle, and it seemed to run a little bit better. So thus far, this thing runs absolutely perfect. This thing, bucking, is a monster. It's got tons of power. It's on the pipe right now, lots of RPM, and when you lean on this thing in the wood, it pulls hard. So for bucking, I'm going to say I give the R-North 372 the thumbs up. And I know, friends, this may be a silly comparison, but it's not. I mean, this thing is right around 6 horsepower out of the box. These out of the box are like 5.4. If you add 20% to this saw, porting it, this saw has power gain over this, but I thought this might be an interesting conversation. For bucking, this thing wins hands down. It's got more power. I stumped with this saw. It's got lots of oomph. Now, it's not just all about power, friends. Let's talk about vibration on both these saws. This thing, like all 5 Series saws, is so smooth, you don't even feel it running in your hands. If you've ever run a 5 Series saw, you know what I'm saying. And if you haven't, try one of these one time. You'll be shocked. I never knew a power saw could be so smooth. It all started with the 576. The first time I ran that saw, I was like, wow. But it's funny, friends, I don't run that saw. It sits on the shelf. I'm probably going to donate it to one of my buddies. Maybe I'll port it and send it to a buddy. But nothing wrong with the 576, but it's kind of heavy for me. This saw, I don't know the power or the weight specs or anything about this saw, but what I do know, it feels right in my hands. It feels very 372-like, and I think they did that on purpose. It's just a nice saw. This thing, you feel a little bit of vibes, but again, Husqvarna's had vibrations figured out for a long time. This saw is very smooth in the hands and does the job. Fuel economy, this thing's good on fuel. It's not as good as my 562. The 562 runs and runs and runs and runs and runs on a tank of fuel. This thing's pretty good on fuel. It's not incredible. It's not horrible. It definitely does enough work on a tank of fuel to satisfy my needs. If you guys have ever had a Stihl 038 Magnum, I used to run one. That was my first larger, 70cc class saw. That thing ran like 8 minutes on a tank of fuel. It was horrible. You just get going and it's like, oh, I need fuel again. This thing, I think I was getting about 25 minutes to a tank, somewhere around there. Nothing wrong with that. The R-North saw, yes, it's ported. It uses more fuel than this, but you know what? My fuel usage on this, I was actually very impressed. This thing runs for a long time on a tank of fuel, which tells me it's ported right for a work saw. It's not a fuel hog. I think I was getting just over 20 minutes on a tank to this saw. So, again, I'm super impressed with this thing. Now, cost-wise, yes, I got this saw as a gift from my good buddy, Harvey. How's it going, Harv? Hope you're doing well, buddy. Super grateful for this saw, buddy. This saw, if I was going to buy a junk saw, a blown up saw, and rebuild it, well, maybe you spend $300 on a 372 that needs to be rebuilt. You buy bearings, a cylinder, a piston, odds and ends. Maybe you're into that saw, we'll say at the most $600, okay? And you poured it. Buy a wrap for $100 or whatever. Maybe you're into the saw for $800. Well, friends, this saw, I paid full retail for this. I went to a random Husqvarna dealer, walked in, I'll take one of those. This saw with the wrap kit in Canada is about, I'm probably into this thing for about $1,800. So, with the bar and chain. Again, friends, that's a huge chunk of change. Now, which saw would I pick? Well, I don't know, friends. If you're not mechanically inclined and you're not going to do any wrenching, well, of course, go and buy one of these. I really like this saw, and I'm going to spend some more time with it. But you know what's funny, friends? I cut down 4 trees the other day with this. I limbed and bucked up 3 of them, and I did 1 with this. I ran this saw for 1 tree, and I put it back in the truck and grabbed this one again. So, me personally, I'm going to grab the ported 372 10 out of 10 times. Maybe once I port this thing, I'll change my mind. But honestly, friends, I know this couldn't be more of an oddball comparison, and it kind of is, but I would rather buy a blown up saw, rebuild it, port it, and know what I got and run it. This thing's incredible. And again, friends, maybe with a pipe, I think I'm going to try and pipe this saw, make a 572 pipe. Maybe with a pipe, this thing will wake up a little bit. My 576 was a lame duck till I muffler modded it. And now it's a pretty strong saw. It pulls a 32 very well. So it could just be a matter of this thing needs a muffler or a pipe. Anyhow, friends, I thought you guys would find this interesting. 372 Iron Horse versus a stock 572. This saw just, wow. It definitely trumps this thing on all aspects except for fuel economy and vibration. So right there, this thing's incredible. Nothing wrong with the 572, friends. I've been very impressed with this. My 5 Series knowledge goes back several years. I've been running 5 Series saws, whether it be a 576 or a 562. I have a couple of blown 550s, blown up ones that I've never fixed, but I've been running 5 Series Huskies for 6 years probably, and this one is the best one I've sampled so far. It's good. It's really good. So, anyhow, friends, thanks for coming to hang out. I hope that answered all the questions I got on these. Like I said, I got a ton of feedback on them, and I like them both, and I wouldn't be upset running either day in and day out, but this thing's just more, it's more entertaining and just more exciting to run. It's faster, it limbs better. Everything about this saw is made to get production done. I cut so much wood with this the other day, it was incredible. I had over a cord of wood in my truck, and I cut it so quickly with this, it was like, yep, that's a work saw. It's time for question of the day. I'm outside on the deck, chilling. I like to sit out here at night, 8:30, something like that, after the baby goes to bed. It's just a nice place to edit videos and just listen to the sounds of nature. You guys can hear the frogs going, and all my neighbors are out seeding, getting those crops in the ground. So it's definitely spring. Today's question of the day is from Francois Monette. How's it going, Francois? Thanks for sending this question. This is actually an awesome one. This question I get asked a lot, and I've often asked this. Francois is rebuilding an 026 still for his dad. It's a great firewood saw. I built a ton of those back in the day. The first saws I ever ported were 026 still, so I'm very familiar with this saw. Francois wants to know, would I run this cylinder with this chip? Take a quick look at this video, and I'll jump back in. I did a little video of the chip. Okay, you guys can see in that video that there's a little chip at the bottom of the cylinder. Now, I've run saws with chips and scores and all kinds of things, and often it doesn't make a difference. Now, Francois, where I would worry about a chip is over top of the exhaust port or a score over top of the exhaust port, because that can really affect compression. Now, that one's at the bottom. I'll bet you that piston doesn't even go down that low. Okay? If you're worried that it does, Francois, what you want to do is, or what I would do, I'll just tell you guys how I do things, and I don't always know everything or do everything right, but just how I would do it. I would take a little 600 grit sandpaper or a little Scotch-Brite, and I would just go back and forth on that chip and break the hard edge where it's chipped away and run it. I think that thing will be just fine. Unless your plating is coming off, and I mean, you could try and hook it off with your fingernail, but I mean, all in all, that thing looks fine, and that wouldn't bother me one bit. Little sandpaper on there, put your piston in and run it, and I think that's all be just fine. Anyhow, Francois, I hope that answers your question, and for the rest of you folks out there, thanks for hanging out here, and honestly, from the bottom of my heart, thanks for sending these questions in. I really enjoy making this segment, and I just think it's neat that you guys think enough of me to send questions. Anyhow, thanks for watching, and have a great night, everybody. Later.